Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson, and also Dirt Car UMP Modified winner Kyle Larson. We'll get to that in a little bit, Dylan. First and foremost, man, how are you doing? How's your Monday going? I know it's a tough Monday coming off that Talladega race yesterday.
Yeah, it's a tough one going into the super speedways. As Larson fans, we really don't expect much. Always something happen at the end. But I mean, it was a full week of racing. We had Eldora, Brownstown. We had Talladega Short Track, and then obviously Talladega yesterday. But full week of racing. That's what we like to see during the weekday. Get something to watch, and we're finally getting a ton of racing that we get to watch. We went a long time without seeing any dirt car racing from Kyle Larson, or just kind of NASCAR for a long time, really. So refreshing to see, and like you said, the modified, cool to see him doing another series too. That's even more racing. So yeah, the more the merrier.
Absolutely. Was a jam packed week of action. Definitely expect some more of that to be coming in the next couple of weeks. But let's talk about Talladega first on the Cup Series side of things. Pretty boring race. I mean, I think all super speedways are boring, but it was especially boring on Sunday. Kyle rode around pretty much all day. I think he kind of had a car that was capable of driving through the pack. I mean, a lot of the Chevrolets and Hendrick cars, Kyle was the top starting Hendrick car in ninth on Sunday. But again, it was a disappointing finish for the 5 team on the 2.66 mile Talladega Super Speedway, as none other than Ross Chastain caused an incident with 2 to go on the first attempt at that green white checkered. Kyle ultimately finished his day 33rd. I just don't know what to think anymore on these super speedways. It just seems like rinse and repeat every single time for Kyle. It just can't catch a break, can't get a lucky day. I think that's all he really needs is just a little bit of luck. We saw Kyle Busch just luckily win the race. I mean, really anybody could have won that one there at the end. It was just all about being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just your typical super speedways. I mean, like 95% of the race is just cars in two lines just following one another. And then, the final five, just a demolition derby, just overtime stacking because of all the wrecks. We saw there at the Larson wreck, terrible collision with Ryan Preece. Of course, obviously wasn't Preece's fault, anything, but of course, none other than Ryan Preece who made the contact with. But yeah, I mean, thankfully it was on the passenger side. Could have been way worse incident. A lot of people were like concerned for the protection. I know the driver side is like a really big like steel reinforced plate, so there is more protection. But I mean, I think there needs to be like some sort of research done to see why that the chassis kind of just like bent up like that on the passenger side. It's not really safe. It was just completely mauled. There was like a hole in the door. So I don't know. I know the car was sent to R&D, so that's good. But I don't know, man. The next gens on super speedways just not that good. I mean, they just kind of have trouble running three wide. I mean, we saw it a little bit in stage two, and we saw it more in stage three. But I mean, I think that's one big thing. There's just not a lot of passing because they can't go three wide there. But um, I mean, that's what you get with the super speedways. I'm not a fan of it, but I mean, nothing much you can do about it.
Yeah, I think that with well, first of all, obviously glad the car got sent back to the R&D center for, just to see about the safety of the car and the crash, basically getting details on the crash and how the safety of the car. But I saw people joking around on Facebook yesterday after the race saying that their NASCAR is probably going to give Kyle a penalty somehow after the car is brought back to the R&D center. I think that was the funniest thing I saw all day yesterday. But yeah, super speedways, just there's too many of them on the schedule. I love Talladega. I love Daytona from a racing standpoint of like, you know, just traditional NASCAR. Like it just seems like it's like supposed to be. NASCAR needs to be at Daytona and Talladega. But another thing I saw yesterday on Twitter, or maybe it was today, somebody said instead of having road course races at Indianapolis and Charlotte, maybe they need to have one road course race a year at Daytona and at Talladega instead of having two on the super speedway. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I honestly would rather see those two tracks as road courses.
I mean, if it takes away a date from the Indy Road Course, I'm all for it. That race is just absolute snooze fest. I can't stand it. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the Daytona 500 Crown Jewel race, it kind of just belongs. Not really too concerned with that, but yeah, I mean, just I don't think they should hold two spots on the schedule. There's a lot of tracks that I think should hold two spots. I mean, Homestead. I mean, even Dover coming up. Dover could have another spot. You never know. I mean, there's a lot of good tracks up there that could definitely get another spot in place of those, in place of like those road courses like Indy Road Course. But always complain about the schedule, but nothing seems to change. They never really want to shuffle anything up. That's speaking from I guess I'm ignorant because I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it, logistically. But just from a fan standpoint, I wish they would kind of shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously we wouldn't probably even be talking about the amount of super speedways as much if it wasn't for Atlanta being added two times on the schedule as a super speedway rather than its previous configuration. So six super speedways a year. I mean, that's a big chunk of the schedule where it's stuff that I think necessarily a lot of drivers don't want to even be there, and then we got big safety concerns. I mean, we haven't seen it come to light as much this year, but we're lucky that Kyle was able to walk away from that one and hopefully with no concussion or head injuries. I mean, we didn't get to see the in-car camera from Kyle's perspective, like inside the car, but for Ryan Preece, they showed that on Fox, and man, I mean, when he hit Larson, obviously nothing was intentional there. Some people were trying to say, oh, it was an intentional thing. Like, no, had nowhere to go, but his head was jerking back and forth. His arms, they fell back like instantly off the wheel. He didn't even take them off intentionally. Just the raw force of the impact just took his hands straight off the wheel. It was a nasty hit. You never hope to see ones like that. Definitely a very scary incident, but Kyle was able to walk away and not a completely horrible point today. As he's finished, I think fifth in stage one, so a couple points he was able to pick up there, and kind of crazy with all the DNFs on the season and bad finishes here or there. Obviously, we had the two wins, but Kyle's still only 36 points out of the points lead in the regular season behind Christopher Bell. So definitely want to stay in that points battle and those that regular season standings are important. As we saw last year, Chase Elliott was able to pick up bonus points and carry that through all the rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, to your point earlier, I mean, not only do we get six super speedway races, we get Talladega in the playoffs, and that's just a whole
Yeah.
nother animal. I mean, it's just anything can happen. Just kind of roll the dice, and you can't really expect much from it. And I mean, back to the safety concerns. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, what happens if a guy gets injured during a playoff run? I think it's really just kind of stupid to have that race in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, it kind of expect this as a Larson advance at this point with the super speedways. Maybe you should just start sitting him out at this point. I don't know. He's already locked into the playoffs. Maybe just say, hey Rick, hey Cliff, hey Jeff, let's just sit this one out this week. It's not my track, but I mean, he's been doing better at it. I think he's definitely improving. Kind of steering away of any trouble. Making some smart decisions and what line to run and whatnot. But I mean, ultimately, it's just kind of out of his control at the end, and the demolition derby part of it, always the big one. The Xfinity race at Talladega was crazy. I mean, there was some really bad wrecks in that one. Definitely a lot more than the Cup, but um, overall Talladega weekend, just some scary wrecks, and you just hate to see that type of stuff. You kind of fear for the safety, but at the same time, these guys walk away from it with a hard crash going 193, T-boning someone. They just kind of walk away from it, maybe a little shooken up, but the cars are definitely bricks, and they kind of walk away from it pretty good. So the safety aspect of it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, super happy to see everybody walk away this weekend from Talladega. It's just you don't want. We're tired of seeing over and over again these close calls where it's like we're lucky to see these guys walk away, but what happens when we never want to get to that point, but when somebody is seriously hurt or somebody doesn't walk away from one of these wrecks. And I guess kind of my last point I wanted to touch on about Talladega was overtime. And I got thinking about this. David Land he talks about this a little bit in his videos, and I don't know if he's made a video yet on Talladega talking about that, but in the past he's kind of made this a point. And overtime in super speedway races, I know it's exciting for the fans, but I think it's the last thing that we need right now from an on the track standpoint. I think obviously aggression levels rise when there is a green white checkered or overtime finish. I think that's the last thing that we need on super speedways. I think that we're not used to seeing NASCAR races end under a caution flag, but we saw it happen yesterday in the Cup race. It was extremely, Chastain's trying to make crazy moves to try and win the race way too early on the two to go lap. I mean, we shouldn't see that happen. I think if the race naturally ends under caution, there was a wreck that runs the laps out under caution, then whoever's leading the race should win. I mean, it's too much room for bad things to happen, and drivers are obviously going to do whatever it takes to win. And I think safety obviously does not seem like it's that important when we have multiple overtime finishes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. I think with the format where guys are just basically winning, you're into the playoffs. You don't really have to worry about the rest of
Yep.
the year. The aggression levels rise even more. So you get that win, and you're done. You're taken care of for the rest of the year. You're in the playoffs. So I mean, that mixed with there's really no repercussions in the next gen car. I mean, like we just talked about, I mean, the safety's pretty much there. The car, I mean, the guys really don't care if they tear them up at this point. Guys are just going to junk it week after week anyway. Don't really care. Um, I mean, I don't know. It's just the style of racing is just way different than it used to be. Not much respect anymore. Just kind of stupid things that happen, like with the Chastain thing. Just kind of, I don't even know what happened there. He just kind of sent it down the middle, between Gregson and Larson. Just stupid racing. Just hate it.
And on top of that too, the not even just that green white checkered attempt, but the one after that when Larson was already out. You saw the incident between Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace. I mean, two guys that are really good friends off the track. I mean, they're the best of friends, and then you see them both. Ryan Blaney hasn't won a race in over a points paying race in over a year, so it's like he's gonna do everything it takes to win. And Bubba, obviously, his best chance to lock into the playoffs is on the super speedways. That seems to be where he has the best runs, and he's trying to do everything he can to stay out in front and win that race. So you see guys that are just desperate, and I hate to see desperate racing. It's ugly, and eventually, we're going to see something happen that we don't really want to see happen, and hopefully NASCAR does something about it before we get to that point. But
Not only that, all these overtimes, you have guys sitting there running out of gas. Like Gibbs ran out of gas on the restart. I think he was the one with Blaney. Gibbs was Blaney's push, and then he just ran out of gas. I think Almirola ran out of gas. So it just instantly turned into like a fuel mileage race, and guys just didn't know if they had enough gas left. I think they said Kyle Busch too. I saw one thing. Kyle Busch's crew chief actually told him to
oh
come
yeah.
in to pit, and Kyle Busch was like, "No, no, no, it's too late." Ended up winning the race. So Kyle Busch's own call kind of won the race there. But yeah, just kind of crazy. A bunch of guys running out of gas there at the end.
Yeah, just Kyle Busch saw the in-car audio from that just a couple of minutes ago before we started the podcast. It's kind of funny. It's like Kyle Busch was, had plenty of time, I think, to commit. They were saying pit, 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 and I think he had plenty of time to commit to pit road, but he just said, "Oops, too late," and he stayed out and went for the win. And I have to agree with the call from Kyle's perspective. I think if he already has a win on the year, so why not go out there and go for two? If he runs out of gas, he's already, pretty much, as we have seen in the past, locked into the playoffs with a win. So I think it was a smart call from Kyle Busch to stay out, and obviously it paid off picking up the win, second of the season for him. But let's go back a little bit to earlier in the week. I talked about it right as we started the podcast. We caught wind of it a little bit earlier in the week before it was announced that Kyle Larson was going to be running his first ever races in a dirt car UMP modified, along with the Castrol Flow Racing Night in America Series last Tuesday and Wednesday night at the Eldora and Brownstown Speedways. Both nights of action weren't quite the most exciting from a racing quality standpoint, I would say, in the late model, as Kyle finished 10th at Eldora and 6th, I think, at Brownstown. But Kyle was able to pick up his pick up a win in his first ever start in a dirt car UMP modified at Tuesday at the Eldora Speedway, which made it 7 different cars that he has won in at Tony Stewart's Eldora Speedway.
Yeah, back to Eldora, Mike Marlar picked up the win. From the race, I thought Hudson O'Neal, I mean, he was a rocket. It looked like he was kind of going to run away with that one. But I think he cut a tire with 3 to go. But I mean, my complaint for Eldora, I mean, the support classes with a massive field of
Yeah.
like over, I think it was over 50 late models. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it was almost midnight by the time everything was wrapped up, and I think it started at 6. So just a 6 hour event, just super dragged out. And then we wanted to watch Larson run the mod, obviously, and that was like the last race, of course.
Yep.
So that was dragged out. Didn't seem like there was too many people there at Eldora either. Like it's usually pretty packed, but I mean, it didn't look like there was a ton of fans in the crowd. But yeah, I mean, Larson's first start, first win in a modified, he won his first heat race. And then in the feature, he went from sixth to first, I think it was, in like 6 laps.
Yep.
So, I mean, just dominated there in the mod the first time in. He was behind the wheel of Justin Allgaier's modified. So, nice to see him doing that. Very impressive, like you just said, 7 types of wins at Eldora, the wing, non-wing, midget, silver crown, late model, NASCAR truck, and now the modified. So super impressive stuff there from Larson Eldora. Um, as far as going into Brownstown, Ricky Thornton, he picked up the win. Might have been the worst track surface I remember in recent memory. It was super rubber down, zero passing whatsoever for probably the better part of over half the race. We can't always get the best track prep, but that had to be one of the worst I've seen. I mean, it almost looked like a NASCAR short track race out there. Just follow the leader, just kind of like just completely rubber down, smooth surface. So, yeah, I mean that was kind of a brutal one at Brownstone.
Yeah, Brownstown definitely left a lot to be desired. I mean, Kyle probably could have finished better than sixth, and I think in the modified he ended up finishing fifth. I want to say.
Yep.
So I think both of those races. I mean, Kyle was. I don't know where. I think Kyle was up to third in the late model, or second or third in the late model feature, and was trying to make a pass, and just there's nowhere to pass anybody. I think the takeaway for me is on a track like that, you see guys that are out there racing for points with the Castrol Flow Racing Night in America series in the late model. Some of the guys are racing for points. Kyle's obviously not racing for points. Going to be some of those events that he's not going to be able to hit later in the year. So Kyle's trophy hunting. I mean, he's not out there to finish second. So even in the modified, he's running second behind the leader. It's only a 20 lap A main or whatever it was. So Kyle's not just going to run second in a modified. He's going to try and do something to pass that guy. That's what he tried to do and ended up finishing fifth in the mod. So at the end of the day, the result doesn't really matter. It wasn't a win, and Kyle just moved out of Brownstown. And I think everybody was just trying to get out of there because they knew it was not gonna be too good. I mean, the feature on the late model side was interesting for about the first maybe 10 laps, and then the surface got rubbered down, and it was a choo choo train all the way around.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal, but going into Talladega short track, Brandon Overton picked up the win. Kind of bad luck for Larson once again. His wheel just completely turned into dust. It looked like in the feature. I mean, the wheel was just shredded. The tire was shredded. Wheel was caving in. Crew guys had trouble taking the wheel off of the hub of the car. But early in the race that happened. Larson started eighth. Obviously fell back to the rear, and he ended up charging all the way back to eighth. I think he kind of had a car capable of winning. Bobby Pierce, I think he probably had the fastest car on the track. But I think he had the blown tire too there at the end. That kind of ended his day. But I think with that, my kind of complaints: too many cars, kind of too many provisionals given out. I think there was 3 last chance showdowns. The track is just too small for that many cars. I mean, there was just cautions left and right, just beating and banging nonstop. But I mean, place was absolutely packed. Talladega definitely puts on a very good crowd. Whether or not that has to do with the NASCAR crowd that's in town for the weekend, I don't know. I'm sure that plays a part, but place was packed. It's good for the racing standpoint, the series for World of Outlaws. So, but I mean, and Larson definitely had a car capable of winning, but like I said, bad luck struck, and that's just typical.
Right, and the contact with JD, I'm assuming is what kind of
Yep.
led to that left rear tire or the left rear wheel being severely damaged. Um, some people were kind of discussing this. I want to kind of get your take on it, Dylan. I mean, after the Volunteer Speedway race between Kyle Larson and JD, one of the race of the year candidates. Kyle Larson obviously picking up the win in that one. JD's interview after the race, he seemed a little salty. I mean, he kind of said, I gave Kyle some room, and he was being nice to him there a couple times. And that one where Kyle was throwing some haymaker slide jobs. I want to get your take. Do you think that this was just a point of JD just saying, okay, look, I'm not, today I'm not going to give you that room that I gave you. I'm not going to cut you that slack that I cut you at Volunteer.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, going back to Volunteer, he did kind of, like you just said, kind of have that little bit of saltiness to him. I mean, he did congratulate him. Larson did throw a few questionable slide jobs there in that race. He obviously gave him the room, but I don't know. I mean, JD, he's a very clean racer for the most part. You don't really see him doing anything, intentional to kind of take a guy out. But who knows? I mean, maybe he's just kind of claiming his title, be like Kyle Larson, step down a little bit, give me some respect. I'm Jonathan Davenport. Who knows? Maybe it's just Larson fans kind of salty the way it went down, but I don't know. I don't know what to take of it. He's usually a clean racer, so I'd like to think he didn't do anything intentional, but I mean, it really sucks in this situation because Larson had such a fast car at Talladega, and I think he definitely could have won. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, and not to, and I don't want to say that it was anything intentional, but I will say I think that it's kind of a maybe a respect thing, but also like you said, just saying like, hey, I'm JD, and we're gonna race each other, the right way, and there's not always gonna be that room that was given to you at Volunteer. It's gonna be hard to. It's gonna be tougher treading sometimes when you're racing against those guys, and I think my other thing I wanted to point out about this race at Talladega was, we didn't really expect the field to be as stout as what it was. We obviously saw over 50 cars, and Friday night kind of being plagued by the weather a little bit, but the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series canceled their events in Illinois for the weekend, and a lot of the Lucas guys were like JD and Overton, who won the race. They were planning on going to Illinois for the weekend, and they ended up making the trip down there to Talladega, which definitely made it a tougher field. And if JD wasn't there, maybe Kyle would have won.
I mean, you never know. Dude, the weather has been crazy this year. It's just been canceling all these dirt events. Summer could not come sooner for these dirt tracks. Just terrible weather all around. I mean, even NASCAR looking forward to Dover. There's some weather there that could be plagued. Weather's not looking too good. You're supposed to be going to that. I'm sure you're not too excited about that, but the forecast, I think it said 80% chance or something of rain for 3 days straight. So the weather's just been terrible for racing. Summer just cannot come any sooner.
Yeah, and obviously that race at Georgetown not confirmed yet for Kyle Larson. Hoping he's going to be there at that event, maybe. But yeah, the weather just looks absolutely terrible for this weekend. We kind of got all of our eyes on that for Dover. Just hoping. I mean, last year we had to wash at Dover. We had to come back on Monday. Hopefully, not the same thing this year. I'm going to definitely be there. But as far as other races go for Kyle Larson, we got the 34 Raceway High Limit Show on Tuesday night, the second race of the year for that series, and already expecting 47 cars there at that one. Not as many outlaw guys. I think looking at the entry list, I think the only two outlaw guys I saw were Brock Zierfoss and Casey Kane on the list so far. But I think that's going to be a good race tomorrow night at 34.
Yeah, I think so. And it kind of goes back to like what we've been talking about, what guys are going to run what. But yeah, I mean, there's still a stout field. There's definitely some good guys in it still. I mean, Rico, he's been on fire this year. Brent Marks is in it. You have your PA guys, Danny Dietrich, so Anthony Macri. So I mean, there's still some stout guys in there, not full time outlaws, but I think it'll still be a really good show. I mean, 2 weeks ago, the first show, I mean, they did a really good job with that, I'd say. So I think it's going to be a good one, and I'm really excited for it. I mean, it's 23,000 to 1, I think it is for this one. So 46 sprint cars and counting. Could be some more guys that enter on later on, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Absolutely. So, kind of going back to like the schedule stuff for the rest of the week, we'll definitely post on our social media channels if anything else gets confirmed, like that potential race at Georgetown, and Lucas goes to Hagerstown on Saturday night. We always have our Kyle Larson results and confirm races spreadsheet in the bio on all of our social media channels, and I think that's always in our YouTube description. If you're watching on YouTube, check that out. That's all the races that are currently 100% confirmed for Kyle Larson, and obviously we post whenever anything comes about. So unless you had anything else today, Dylan, I think that's all for today's show.
Yeah, I mean, just like you just said, as far as Georgetown, those races that are, near the NASCAR track that week, we kind of always, at this point, kind of expect him to be there. It's not confirmed, obviously, until usually race day, but it's most cases he's usually there. I think it was what Ross Chastain that's running that one too in the late model.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, just keep an eye on Larsonland. All socials will definitely post. So we do the week schedule post, and then we'll obviously post the race day. Hopefully he races it. Hopefully it doesn't rain out. We get some dirt racing as well as some domination at Dover, one of Larson's best tracks. A lot of momentum this year. So Larson, I think he has 11 top tens and 14 starts at Dover. So one of his best tracks for sure on the circuit. One last thing at Dover, we have the new aero package this year for the
yep.
ovals mile or shorter, but we won't see it at Dover. I saw because of the banking of the
Oh,
track. So it's going to be the same package as 2022 Dover race. So expect a
interesting.
similar outcome as last year. But Hendrick boys have been on fire at Dover. Bowman, 2021, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hendrick finished. Elliott picked it up last year. So it's looking good for the Hendrick boys going into Dover.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know that about the package. That's interesting stuff there. But Hendrick's been fast on short tracks, and like you said, Elliott picking up the win last year looking good for Kyle Larson and the 5 team. So that should pretty much wrap up today's show. We'll be back again next week to recap NASCAR from Dover as well as the High Limit Sprint Car Series race at the 34 Raceway and any other racing that Kyle Larson may participate in. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on track action over the next 7 days. We will see you in the next episode.